Hi guys, it's Talha here again today. So today we are going to learn a topic in programming, in the subject programming. So what we are going to learn will be about loops. I'll s- um I'll talk about what are loops, and then secondly we are going to talk about nested loops, nested loops, and then at the end of the video I'm going to solve a problem. I'm going to solve a problem which Sir Saf gave us today. Problem which we had to solve. So first, let's come to our first topic, that is loops. So what are loops? Loops are reserved words in a language, in our C++ language, which are used to perform a task several times. Loops are used to repetitively perform a task. So we use loops, for example, if you want to sum a number of digits, if you want to perform a task several times. So instead of writing the code over and over, we can just write a loop and we can perform that task several times. So I just wanted to recall what was loop. And now we have different kinds of loops. We have while loop, while these all are the names are the reserved words in a language, so we cannot change them. We can only use them for their only purpose they should be used for. So we have while loop, we have for loop, we have do while, although we have just studied while and for loop. And then in while loop there are also certain categories we have inside while loops. For like the subtypes of while loop, we have counter controlled while loops. We have sentinel. Counter control is where you specify a value that the counter should be. If the counter is, for example, if I is less than 9, then the condition is true, and when I increments at the end of the loop, it it will be false afterwards. So when it increments, when it's 9, and when it increments, it becomes 10. So this condition becomes false. The loop does not execute anymore. Then we have sentinel, where we don't know the number of times the loop should iterate. So we provide a sentinel where we say while is I when I is not equal to a sentinel value, for example, n, capital N. So when you will enter capital N, the loop will actually stop, because here we have specified a condition that it should not be equal to other. But when we equal it to N, it will be false and the loop will not execute. Then we have EOF while loop, and we haven't studied that yet, so I'll just skip that. And then we have flag control or flag while loop, where you specify a condition that while the user inputs something, and while I equals for example a string, for example y means yes, so the loop will execute, and when it's not y, for example it's n or s or something else, it won't execute. So that was about while loops. And then we have for loop. The only difference is, in while loop we specify the condition first, and then the counter is down below at the end of the loop, and then we close the loop. But in for loop we specify all of the conditions, the counter, and the incrementation. We perform all of these three steps in one bracket at the start of the loop, and then we start the loop. The only difference is this one. So this was all about while loops, for loop, and do while. We haven't studied this yet. It's actually, do the statement executes first, and then it comes to the condition of the loop. But we'll actually study that later when Sir Saf will teach this topic. So I'm not touching this topic yet. So we have now let's come to nested loops. So what are nested loops? For example, in a loop we want to find the sum of the digits the user enters. So for example we have this loop while I is less than 10. Then we have sum we equal it to sum plus num. Here we enter C in num. So this is a loop, and then we exit the loop, and then we see out sum. So here when we initialize I by 1, so it gives us output of 9 numbers, the sum of 9 numbers, first 9 integers, and then we declare I, so int I. I'm not going to write the whole code because I'm going to solve a problem in that. I'll write the whole code. So we have this int I, we have declared it, we have initialized it, and here we have specified a condition while I is less than 10. So this code executes, and then it provides us with the sum. So it's for here it is just storing the value of the sum here. I plus plus incrementation. Otherwise, if you won't increment it, this loop is going to be infinite, because there will be no incrementation, and this condition will always be true, so it will be infinite. So you have to increment. So later on this condition certainly be false. So you want this condition to certainly be false at some time, because you want to end the loop. So so in this step we are just repeating this step, the sum equals sum plus num. We just want to repeat the steps which are inside this loop. But sometimes we want to repeat the whole loop over and over again to a certain condition, to a certain degree of time, under certain till certain conditions are met. Sometimes we want to repeat the whole loop. So for repeating the whole loop, that's why I was giving an example of this one. That is why we use nested loops. So for nested loops, for example, there's a loop inside of a loop. So there's one loop and there's inside. For example, we have while, or let's say we have for we have I equals 1, then we have then we specify the condition I is less than 10, and then we increment I by 1. So here's this loop. It started here, and then so this is the loop, and then we have another loop inside of it. For example, we use another counter. We have j equals 1, j is less than I, or you can say j is less than 10. J is less than 10, you increment j by 1. Yep. So here there's another loop inside, and then you specify the statements here. So not only these statements are repetitive, but this whole loop is repetitive. And there are certain properties of nested loop. For example, if the conditions are true in this loop, if this loop executes the first one, the outer loop, so this loop, the second loop, or the inner loop is going to complete all of its iteration before the control goes over to the outer loop. So it will for example, if this condition is true, so this loop is going to complete all of its iteration. Then when this condition is going to be false, then the control will be shifted to the outer loop. And then when again this condition is true, then again this loop, the inner loop, is going to complete all of its iterations, and then the control is going to shift to this loop until this condition is false, until the outer loop's condition is false. So let's come to the example which Sir Saif gave us today, the problem. So he told us to he told us to write, he told us to output the numbers like this, like this, like this, and then he also told us to input the numbers like this. So he told us first to input the number to output the result like this using the for loop, using the nested for loop, and then he told us to input the numbers like this to you, and also use, and we also using the nested for loop. So here we have a problem. First of all, we will see how many times these lines or this code should be repeated. So here we have 1 2 3 4, so we have 4 lines. Okay, so let's write the whole code. Actually, let's write the whole code so you guys can understand better what I'm talking about. So here we have here we have okay, I am just going to start from int main. Right here we start this the function main, then we declare int I, and we declare, because we are going to need 2 counters, so we declare int I j. Alright, and now we initialize I by 1, or you can do it inside the loop, it's up to you. So I'm going to do inside the loop for I equals 1. So these statements I showed you should be repeated 4 times. So I equals 1, this is the initialization of I when I is less than or equal to 4. So we want those statements to repeat 4 times. So I is less than or equal to 4, then increment the value of I by 1. So this is the loop, this is the loop. Alright, now we are actually going to need another loop, because these statements are going to repeat 4 times, but in the first statement we just want 1. In the second statement we want 1 2. In the third statement we want 1 2 3. In the fourth statement we want 1 2 4 respectively. So for this reason we are going to have to insert another loop inside. And if you guys don't want to use nested loop, you can always use for loop 4 times, but it's more efficient to use the nested one rather than using a loop 4 times. So here we have where we declare another loop. I mean, here we write another loop. So for j, so this is the loop inside. So j equals 1, j equals 1. Now here we specify the condition if j is less than, oh sorry, here if j is less than or equal to I am going to explain it. And so increment j by 1, and then what we do, we see out actually we see out j, right? Yep, we see out j, and then we create a string with an empty space, so we can have an empty space, and then we exit the loop, and then we create then we see out endl, so we can have them printed on a separate line, and then we close the outer loop and then return 0. So this is the loop. So let me explain how it works. So I is initialized by 1. Here's the condition of I, that it should repeat 4 times, and at the end the and the counter should be incremented by 1 when this loop is completed. So what it does, first, so when I is 1, this loop executes. Now this loop is going to complete all of its iterations. So what is it's going to do for j equals 1, so j is also initialized at 1. So the condition is if j is less than or equal to I. So here I was 1, so here j is less than or equal to I. So j is 1 and j is equal to I, so the condition is true. So we go to the cout statement and couts j, and that is j is 1. Here j is 1. so it outs j. Then it increments j, and j becomes 2. Now j equals 2. Is j is less than or equal to I was 1, so this condition becomes false. So it completes its single iteration, then this condition becomes false, then the control again shifts to the outer loop. Now we are incrementing I as well, so I becomes 2, then it comes here I equals 2, then it comes to the condition, is I less than or equal to 4? Yes, it's less than 4, so we again come here. We have j equals 1. We have okay, so j is also incremented, it's 2, so we have no, okay, so we are again starting this inner loop. So we have j equals 1, j is less than I, yes, so we have j 1. Okay, so it's also endl, so this line, the cursor is going to move to the next line. So here we are talking about the next line. So we have j, and then the j becomes 2, and j, yes, because I is also 2, so this condition is true. Then we have 1 and 2, because this loop is going to iterate 2 times. Then j becomes 3, then this condition becomes false, the control is again shifted to the outer loop. And I is also 3, so I is less than 4, yep, so this loop executes again, and in this way we get the output 1 1 2 1 2 3 and 1 2 3 4. In this way we get this output. Alright, now let's see how to do the opposite. So we do the same, we actually do the same with I equals 1 less than or equal to 4, I plus plus. We do the same, but here with the j we do for j equals 4, because we are doing the opposite. So for j equals 4, if j is greater than or equal to 1, I, then or equal to I, j plus plus, and here cout endl. So here what is actually going to happen, that all of this process is going to execute all of the code, but here j equals 4 and j is greater than or equal to I, that is I is 1, so this code is going to execute, that is cout j, and j will be 4 in the first line. Then in the second line, then when this condition becomes false, the control is again shifted to the first loop, then it again executes, and then the second time this loop is going to iterate 2 times, so 4 and the j decrements, so here it decrements again, and then it's going to give us 4 3 is going to give us 4 3 2 1 4 3 2 4 3 and 4. Alright, so here we have 4, yep, 4 3 2 1, but here we have a greater than or equal to, yes, so this is how you do this problem. So you just change the loop for, you just change the counter values for j, and you decrement it instead of incrementing it when you're doing this. Alright, thank you guys. I hope it helped you to solve these problems. I hope it helped you, my lecture helped you. I also enjoyed giving this lecture. Thank you very much.